just want to move forward with our AFG updates and share a bit about what's been happening this past year. What's the work that we've been doing to support you all, to support the youth that you work with. So I'm really excited to introduce my colleague, Chantal Hildebrand, our Director of Programs. Chantal joined our team in February, and she helps manage and further develop all of our programs to improve systems that best meet the needs of girls and gender expansive youth. And that's through managing our youth participatory action research, community mobilization, relationship building with stakeholders, advocacy, and cultural strategy. Chantal has almost a decade's worth of experience working in the nonprofit sector to advance equity in international contexts and in California-based programming. She brings an intersectional lens and a passion for creating spaces for historically oppressed populations to share their diverse experiences and lead decision-making processes. Prior to joining Alliance for Girls, Chantal also worked at Rise Up, where she managed programming in 5 sub-Saharan African countries and California to improve the lives of women and girls. As you can tell, Chantal is a really incredible person. I'm so grateful to be able to work with her on this team and excited to introduce you to her.
Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much for giving me the space to share as well. And I'm so excited to be here with you all for this membership meeting and hopefully for many more in the future. So just moving us forward, what we've been able to do just as updates as Alliance for Girls and what we've really been focusing on over the past 12 months has been as you saw, a lot of our research reports were coming out, and this is led by our girls, our Young Women's Leadership Board, which was made up of 9 girls, ages between 16 and 19, or 14 and 19. And one of the reports that came out in March 2021 was Radical Visions of Safety. So the Radical Visions of Safety was really focusing on highlighting how girls and gender expansive youth define safety for themselves. It shared some of the best practices adopted by AFG member organizations that actually create safer spaces for girls themselves. Next slide, please. From the research, Radical Visions of Safety, the results we found is exactly as Emma shared in her opening statement. Girls define safety as something more than absence of violence. It moves away from traditional assumptions and encompasses notions of physical and emotional ideas of comfort, non-judgment, acceptance, belonging, sovereignty, and boundaries. Some of the organizational practices that contribute the most to creating safer environments from girls, and things that our members are currently doing, what you guys are already doing, is contributing to shifting strict gender norms by spreading awareness, holding key boundaries and consent, and really leveraging digital literacy to really share out these issues and start to shift the way the environment understands girls and gender expansive youth. Next slide. Another research report that came out that we launched just recently last month was led by our Young Women's Leadership Board, again, was our Uniting Isolated Voices, Girls and Gender Expansive Youth During COVID-19. Through this report and through this study, which surveyed a total of 1,214 girls and gender expansive youth across California from March 2020 through January 2021. We got a sense of the experiences of those same groups, girls and gender expansive youth, their experiences and the needs that they had during COVID-19. Next slide. As from the results that we found of the 1,214 girls and gender expansive youth across California that we surveyed, the COVID-19 pandemic eviscerated an already fragile ecosystem of support of girls and gender expansive youth. From those surveys, as Emma already shared, 66% reported experiencing greater stress and anxiety during COVID-19 and shelter in place. Almost half, 44% of girls who responded to our survey said that they had more caregiving responsibilities than before the pandemic. And 31% noted that these caregiving responsibilities negatively impacted their schooling and education. Furthermore, 30% reported being unable to get the learning support they need to be successful in school, which was twice as likely the case for Black and African American girls with previous suspension or school expulsion, and systems impacted girls. 19% reported having a lack of access to services, which was twice as likely for girls who identified as Black and African American and who had previous, or those who had previous suspension or expulsion. 18% reported a need of female hygiene products. 16% reported not having regular access to internet, and 12% of respondents reported not having access to a safe place to live. Girls with previous suspension or school expulsion were 3 times as likely to report that statistic. Girls and gender expansive youth were the unseen heroes of the pandemic, taking on additional caregiving responsibilities, seeking additional employment to subsidize their families, and all the while trying to stay afloat at schools. And yet, girls and gender expansive youth have been met with a fractured and underfunded support system that has reached a near breaking point under the pressure of COVID-19. There's a shining light, though. You, the AFG members that continue to create spaces where girls feel comfort, support, and seen. Due to your work and your efforts during COVID-19, the girls you serve found pockets of refuge and support despite the lack of support from systems during these unprecedented times. Next slide. So in addition to all the research that we've been able to complete over the past year, we've had a lot of really successful program wins. For instance, in our school partnerships programming, we've been partnering with African American Female Excellence, AFI, to launch the Sankofa Sisters Black Girl Power Healing Circles project. This project aims to train 10 African American girls from OUSD in trauma-informed facilitation and create safe spaces for their peers so that they can co-lead 3 two-day-long healing circles retreats for about 100 African American girls and girls of color and 20 of their parents. In addition, our Young Women's Leadership Board, the 9 girls who are majority girls of color, participated in our youth participatory action research process and were trained in qualitative and quantitative data analysis, reporting, and leveraging research for organizing and advocacy. That's the result of those 2 amazing reports that those girls created. 100% of the Young Women's Leadership Board members said that they are more knowledgeable about the research process, and that participating in this project helps them develop as a leader. In addition, we had significant advocacy wins, including the launch of the Not One More Girl campaign, which was in partnership with BART, with Betty Ono, Unity Council, and Black Girl Brilliance. And what is super exciting about that project is we've been able to have ongoing conversations with BART along with our partners in order to ensure that BART is safer for girls to use and to combat gender-based violence. We also had the win of the allocation of $1.8 million for period product distribution in Santa Clara County. This also filtered into the passage of the AB 367, which was passed on the Senate floor just yesterday on September 8th and is moving on to the governor's office in the next couple of weeks. Also, $400,000 was allocated in funding from Santa Clara County for the When Young Moms Thrive initiative, which is Alliance for Girls is working on in partnership with the Young Women's Freedom Center. Next slide, please. And now I'll pass it back to Kaylin.
Thanks, Chantal. So we also wanted to take time to celebrate you, our members, and what we've been able to do over the past year. So we are now 120 different organizations and 12 professionals that are working directly with girls and gender expansive youth. Also wanted to just send a quick shout out to our new members. We have a lot of really incredible new members that joined in this past year. They include Ann Mother, Beganda Foundation, Color the Water, Freedom Community Clinic, Girls Crushing It, Girls Outdoor Adventure and Leadership, Girls Taking Up Space, Live Girl, The Practice Space, who you'll hear in one of the breakouts later, Root and Rebound, Rosie the Riveter Trust, Urban Advocates and Achievers, and Youth Uprising. So please join me in sending them a warm welcome through the chat. I'm excited to have them join us. Next slide. We also hosted 7 multi-series trainings that reached nearly 240 girls champions over this past year. And what we really wanted to focus on is gender identity, sexual orientation and expression, and what are best practices for creating affirming and expansive spaces for youth. Effective practices for supporting girls virtually. Obviously, remote learning and remote programs has been a key shift in girl services and continues to be. Centering Black women and girls' leadership and their voices, implementing anti-racist practices, and demystifying advocacy for nonprofits. How can we, especially during this time, as we continue to advocate for girls and gender expansive youth, and especially those of color, what can we as nonprofits do to engage in advocacy and help change policy to make sure that their experiences and systems are there to really support them? Next slide. We also launched or supported affinity groups in collaboration with members. So affinity groups are smaller groups of members that join, across based on a shared experience, really just trying to increase connection and support among members. So deepening our work in Santa Clara County. Jennifer Berger, shout out to you from About Face for starting the Executive Director CEOs group, and also the program facilitators, program staff, and educators group that kicked off by Enya Valelia. Just trying to create these additional spaces to make sure people feel like they have community to be supported. And we're really interested in launching more too. So if you would like to join us in helping to launch other affinity groups, please let us know. And we will go into our next slide. So Alliance for Girls, as you've noticed, we've also experienced a lot of growth internally. We have a lot of new faces on our team, which is really exciting. And you'll be hearing a little bit from everybody the rest of today, so that, Emma mentioned them, but that includes Aaliyah, our executive assistant. Chantal joined us in February. Miari, our program coordinator. She is really the reason why we can come together today, planning all the back end logistics and coordinating with our speakers. Ronnie Goldfarb, our interim deputy director, and then our newest team member, Christelle Chavez, our communications manager. So really excited for this growth. What that also means is we have more capacity to support you and to really continue to create more robust programs that really speak to your needs and support our collective impact and to, increase our reach towards more girls and gender expansive youth. And so now we'll touch on the way forward.
So looking at the way forward and where we're headed, and exactly as Emma had shared in her introduction and welcome, Alliance for Girls is really focusing in on driving radical safety and what that means for our organizations, what it means for girls themselves. In the diagram you see on your screen, we really break down what radical safety means to us, what it means to girls, what it means to organizations like yours who all contributed to this diagram. So as you can see, at the center is girls. That's at the individual level. Moving into the interpersonal level, it's really the definitions that girls have themselves used to define safety. So sovereignty, comfort, representation, trust, non-judgment. Moving into the organizational level, what does it mean to actually create safety? What does that look like? And this is, the organizational pillars that really describe radical safety in the report that the Radical Visions of Safety report. This is increasing connections to caring adults and peers, increasing community support and communication for girls, and also multi-generational practices, making sure girls are actually part of systems with adults. looking at a community of practice, that next phase outwards, what we're trying to build out of these conversations with both you as members, as well as also what came out of the report, are good examples of what we're trying to achieve through this community of practice, this phase and this space and this circle around this diagram. And that's shifting gender norms. That's the work you guys have already started. It's really girls sitting at decision-making tables, being part of these huge discussions that drive our organizations. It's increasing impact of our intergenerational leaders. That's the capacity building, but more than that, actually giving tools and resources in order for our intergenerational leaders to continue to create this radical safety world that we're trying to create. And then also the outer realm ring is really around the policy, the environment that we're trying to create that can be around safety, that can be safer for girls. And that's our work around gender-based violence prevention, really looking at the budgets that support organizations' practices of safety, and making accessible disaggregated data for girls by girls. So this is really the model that we are focusing on over the next couple of months. And we're really excited to continue talking with you in each one of the breakout sessions around how radical safety fits into the work that you guys are doing yourselves.
So we also wanted to just make sure you all are aware in which the different ways that we also support you throughout the year after year. So, we will continue to bring people together, at least for now, through online convenings. We will be hosting workshop series that are led by members. Well, we are always here to elevate your work in our communications, facilitating connections, really creating a healing space for all of us, and to promote self-care and community care. And then finally, building collective advocacy campaigns to advance policies that center girls and gender expansive youth. So just wanted to go over that quickly to let you all know, for those of you that are newer to Alliance for Girls, the different ways in that we continue to offer support throughout the year. And then also wanted to let you know about our upcoming trainings that are coming up. You'll have a chance to hear from, next slide, please, Miari. You'll have a chance to hear from these organizations in one of the breakout sessions. We have an Equity at the Center panel that will have Missy, the Practice Space, Black Girls Brilliance, and our amazing moderator, Che Abrams, as well, guiding that discussion. So just wanted to make sure folks are aware of the upcoming training dates. We'll definitely send out an email with all the links to register and be a part of that. And really the focus of our upcoming trainings is to engage in interactive conversations, to learn best practices on how to implement meaningful practices and approaches for modeling equity internally and throughout your services. How are these members thinking about equity? How are they modeling it within their organizations? How are they thinking about youth power and sharing power between adults and girls in your decision-making processes? And how are we really implementing these elements of radical safety that Chantal and Emma went through to really support girls in ways that they think are safe for them? So I hope you join us in that breakout session to hear more about that. And with that, that wraps up our updates.